According to Google, there are 210 Ninjago episodes, and if you have read the title, you know this is gonna take a while, so let's just get started, shall we? So the pilots are weird, as there are 2 different versions of episodes of this season, as there are 2 22-minute episodes or 4 11-minute episodes. And for me, I prefer the 22-minute episodes, so I'll just be choosing those 2 to rank. So the first pilot episode is The Way of the Ninja. It is a great introduction to the world of Ninjago and all of his characters, 9 out of 10. Next up is King of Shadows. It is a solid follow-up to the first episode, and it has some cool action sequences as well, 8.5 out of 10. This gives the pilots an average rating of 8.75. Now let's move on to Season 1, Rise of the Snakes, which came out in 2012 with 13 22-minute episodes. Episode 1 is Rise of the Snakes. We get introduced to Lloyd and the Serpentine. Overall decent episode, 8 out of 10. Episode 2 is called Home. It is a bit of a filler episode, but it is fun, and we also get to see the bounty for the first time, 7.5 out of 10. Snakebit is next, and this is a fun episode. We see Jay's parents, but overall not a super important episode, 7 out of 10. Episode 4 is Never Trust a Snake. This is Pie4's first episode, and also the first Ninjago episode I ever watched, 8 out of 10. Can of Worms is episode 5. Pink Zane, that's all I really need to say, 8.5 out of 10. Episode 6 is The Snake King. The ninja fight Samurai X, and we also find out that Nia is the samurai as well. Cool episode, 8 out of 10. TikTok, no not that one, is the 7th episode, and this is just one hell of an emotional rollercoaster for Zane. 9 out of 10. Episode 8 is Once Bitten, Twice Shy. It is a fun Jay and Nia focused episode, 7.5 out of 10. The 9th episode is The Royal Blacksmith. Cole gets some cool development, and the ninja dance, 8.5 out of 10. Episode 10 is The Green Ninja, where Lloyd gets revealed to be the Green Ninja. Very cool episode, 9 out of 10. Episode 11 is All or Nothing. It is a very fun episode where the ninja get locked up for a while, and we get a huge, very cool fight sequence at the end, 8 out of 10. Episode 12 is The Rise of the Great Devourer. There is a lot of tension and high stakes in this episode, and it's also very fun, 9.5 out of 10. Day of the Great Devourer is a very good season finale, where the ninja team up with Garmadon, so 9.5 out of 10. This gives Season 1 an average of 8.3. And now on to Season 2, we have Darkness Shall Rise. It doesn't have a lot of importance to the story, but it is fun to see the ninja do random jobs, 8.5 out of 10. Episode 2 is Pirates vs Ninja. It's fun, we meet Derek, but it is overly filler, 7 out of 10. Double Trouble is next. Lloyd gets his time to shine in this episode. The ninja's doubles are also cool as well, 8 out of 10. Ninja Ball Run is a fun racing episode. Again, not important to the show, but extremely fun, 7.5 out of 10. Child's Play is a great concept for an episode with the ninja turning into children, and we also get to see Lloyd grow up as well, 8 out of 10. Wrong Place, Wrong Time is a cool time travel episode, 8.5 out of 10. The Stone Army gets us rolling into the main part of the season very well, 8 out of 10. The Day Ninjago Stood Still has a lot of good tension and setup for the rest of the season, 8 out of 10. The Lost Voyage is another very emotional Zane episode because he gets to meet his dad for the first time in years, 8.5 out of 10. The Island of Darkness has a lot of high stakes, and the ninja go on a cool adventure to get the elemental blades as well, 9 out of 10. The Last Hope provides excellent tension that sets up the final battle very nicely, 9 out of 10. Return of the Overlord shows us the Overlord in his true form for the first time, and ends with the ninja deserted on the Dark Island, 9.5 out of 10. Finally, we have this finale of Season 2, Rise of the Spinjitzu Master. It is an epic battle that could have been so much more, unfortunately. Still good, but not great, 8.5 out of 10. This leaves Season 2 with an average of 8.3 out of 10. Now moving on to Season 3 Rebooted, that released in 2014 after the show was supposed to be cancelled and gone forever. The first episode is The Surge, which is a good intro to the season that shows us all of the new tech and the new story, all in a quick, fast pace, 8 out of 10. The Art of the Silent Fist is fun, and we get to see Sensei Garmadon for the first time, but this episode is very filler, 7.5. The Blackout is a cool episode with heaps of tension that really brings the season into gear, 8 out of 10. The Curse of the Golden Master gives us a lot of lore about the Overlord, and we get to see the Serpentine again, 9 out of 10. Enter the Digiverse is a very fun and visually creative episode that felt very fresh and different to what we have seen before. 8.5 out of 10. Codename Arcturus has a cool Kai spy mission that somehow eventually ends up with the ninja going into space. 7.5 out of 10. The Void is a fun space adventure with the ninja and a great tease into what a space season could look like. 8.5 out of 10. Finally, the Titanium Ninja is a solid episode, but is greatly carried by Zane's sacrifice at the end. 8 out of 10. This season gets an average of 8.1. Now, in 2015, we get a fan favourite season, the Tournament of Elements, which starts with the episode The Invitation, which is a great setup to the tournament and shows us how Zane's death has affected all of the ninja. 8.5 out of 10. Only One Can Remain continues a strong start to the season, which gives us an even greater introduction to the tournament and other elemental masters. Also 8.5 out of 10. Episode 3 Versus gives us a lot of cool fights, most notably the Jay and Cole fight. Easy 9 out of 10. Ninja Roll is a fun rollerblading episode, one of my favourites as a kid. 9 out of 10. Spy for a Spy is a cool episode where we see Kabuki Nia. 8 out of 10. Spellbound is pivotal to the season as we see Chen's plan getting revealed and everyone gets tasked with hunting down Nia. 9 out of 10. The Forgotten Element provides a lot of tension and emotion as Lloyd takes on Chen in the final matchup. 9.5 out of 10. Day of the Dragon is a down part of the season that only really picks up at the end when the Anaconda henchmen get transformed into actual Anaconda. 7.5 out of 10. Episode 9 is the greatest fear of all, which gives us the prison fight and miniature Pythor and ends on a cliffhanger as well. 8.5 out of 10. The finale is Corridor of Elders. That ending fight is a cinematic masterpiece, better than Endgame, and Garmadon's sacrifice at the end is very emotional. 9 out of 10. Overall, this season gets a very strong 8.65 out of 10 on average. 2015 also gave us Possession. So the first episode is Winds of Change. It is a strong setup to the season with the introduction of Moro and his possession of Lloyd. 8.5 out of 10. Ghost Story gives us some good Moro lore and the ninja rides some yaks. 8 out of 10. Sticks and Stones has a slow start, but we do get introduced to Ronin, and then the ninja have a fun fight with Moro for the scroll of their jutsu. 7.5 out of 10. The Temple on Haunted Hill is a favourite of mine, with the ninja being forced to face their fears in order to get the scroll of air jutsu, which eventually results in Cole becoming a ghost. 8.5 out of 10. Peekaboo is another fun episode, showcasing the ninja climbing a mountain to get to the Cloud Kingdom. 8 out of 10. Kingdom Come gives us some great lore on the 16 realms and also some good Nia character development. 8.5 out of 10. The Crooked Path takes the ninja on the wrong path. It is slightly filler, but still very good. 7.5 out of 10. Then we have Grave Danger, where the ninja are on the right path. It has high stakes, and is just a peak episode. 9 out of 10. Curse World Part 1 is an epic first half to the finale. 9 out of 10. And the second part is action-packed, with Lloyd fighting Moro across the realms, and Nia unlocking her true potential and defeating the Pianoman, and Moro's emotional death at the end is just bittersweet. 9.5 out of 10. This leaves the season with an average of 8.4 out of 10. Season 6 Skybound came out in 2016 and started with the famous episode Infamous. It is a strong start to the season, showing the ninja's new acclaimed fame and also the introduction of Nanaconda Jin. 8 out of 10. Public Enemy Number 1 is a fun episode, showcasing a ninja on the run with Ronin tasked to hunt them down. 8.5 out of 10. Encrypted came out on my 8th birthday and it was a fun episode seeing the ninja in prison, but it felt like more of a plot device than an actual important part of the story, as they were in and out in only one episode. 8 out of 10. Misfortune Rising gives us lots of pirate goodness, and we get to see Nardacon's true powers as he traps Kai in his blade. 8.5 out of 10. On a Wish and a Prayer is a fun episode where we see the ninja journey to get to Tigerwater Island on Jay's boat. 8 out of 10. My Dinner with Nardacon is a cool episode where we get to see Jay on the Misfortune's Keep dealing with the pirates all on his own. 8 out of 10. Wishmasters is a slow episode, but its second half is great with the ninja dressing up as pirates. Then we get to see one of the most creative Ninjago battles with all of those wishes. 8.5 out of 10. The Last Resort is an interesting episode where we see Jay and Nia's relationship build stronger as they are faced with a fight with Nanakon, 8 out of 10. Operation Land Ho is a fun episode which also shows us a new side to Jay which we have never seen before, being his leadership, 8.5 out of 10. The way back is a cool, clever, and an emotional rollercoaster of a finale, which I feel gets a bit too much hate for what it is, 9 out of 10. This all means that this season gets an average of 8.2. In 2017, we got the Hands of Time season, and coincidentally, that is what the first episode is called. So this episode gives us a lot of really cool lore about the Hands of Time and the war that happened in the past, and also the fight at the end, which was cool as well, 8 out of 10. The Hatching is the second episode, where not much really happens apart from this fight, which is just really hard to watch, 7.5 out of 10. Episode 3 is called The Time of Traders. Again, not much really happens here either, apart from the fight between Crocs and Acronics and Kai and Nia, where they also find out that their parents may have been traders, which was pretty cool, 8 out of 10. Next up is The Scavengers, and for the third episode in a row, nothing really happens. Where we're still very sick, the ninja fight a couple of million on some scaffolding, and Zane breaks down again, 7.5 out of 10. Then in episode 5, we have Lion in the Sound, and this episode is a lot better. Jace goes to his parents' junkyard to save them from the Vermilion, then he gets his lightning bike and uses it to steal the slow-mo blade from them. I actually quite enjoyed this episode, so 8.5 out of 10. The Attack is up next, and I think this is a severely underrated episode. Sure, the ninja just fight in front of the temple for a bit, but I did like the battle, and it does end with Wu being taken, which is some stakes of course, 8 out of 10. Now we have secrets discovered, the secret being that Kai and Nia's parents did indeed work for the Vermilion. In this episode, Nia also confronts the new Samurai X, while the other ninja make their way to the Hands of Time's hideout, 8 out of 10. Now we have Pause and Effect, another decent episode, where the ninja infiltrate the hideout and Kai and Nia learn the truth about their parents, 8 out of 10. And next up is Out of the Fire and Into the Boiling Sea. This is another fun episode, where we get to see Kai and Nia team up in order to retrieve the reversal blade. We see how well they work together, and the sibling bond really thrive throughout this episode, 8.5 out of 10. And now into the finale, Lost in Time, where they go back in time to the original fight between the Elemental Masters and the Time Twins, except now Kai and Nia are there to stop the current Crocs and Acronic. It is a decent battle, but the best part is the fight in the time machine that ends up with Wu being lost in time. The episode also ends off on a cliffhanger as Lloyd says, "Where is Wu?" Very cool, 9 out of 10. This means this season gets an 8.1 out of 10. It definitely got carried by a few standout episodes. Now on to season 8 from 2018, Sons of Garmadon, and it gets off to a very strong start with the Mask of Deception. It definitely sets the dark tone to the season really well, and the very first scene of the episode is genuinely one of the best sequences in the show, easily an 8.5 out of 10. The Jade Princess is another strong episode, where we see the ninja fight the Sons of Garmadon, and Lloyd also gets closer to Harumi, another 8.5 out of 10. The next episode is the Oni and Dragon, and this is very nice. We learn about who the Oni are for the first time, and Zane and Cole disguise themselves as well. 9 out of 10. Snake Jaguar is another amazing episode. The motorcycle race between Zane and the SOG is really fun, but it could be considered slightly filler, so 8.5 out of 10. Then we have Dead Man Squall, which starts off with the Zane and Mr. E fight, which leaves Zane in a bad spot. And then we also have the fight between the ninja and Pixel on the bounty during the storm. Absolutely easy 9 out of 10. The next episode, The Quiet One, gives us a lot of good quality time between Lloyd and Harumi, while we see the ninja try to repair the broken down bounty, 9 out of 10 again. Then we have Game of Masks, and this is the best episode of the season without a shadow of the doubt, 9.5 out of 10. The tension between Lloyd and Harumi in that scene is crazy and just makes this episode nearly perfect. Then Dread and Arrival is another amazing episode, where we see the ninja attempt to stop the ceremony that brings Garmadon back, 9 out of 10. Then in episode 9, True Potential, it gives us our first glimpse of the new resurrected Garmadon, who isn't amazing in this episode, but he's still quite cool. However, obviously the best part of the episode is the Lloyd and Garmadon fight, which is just so intense, 9.5 out of 10. And finally, we have Big Trouble, Little Ninjago. So this is also amazing. The ninja take on the Oni Titan, and the main 4 ninja also get transported to the land of Oni and Dragon, which was cool because this season ended on a cliffhanger, which was very different for Ninjago at the time. 9 out of 10. So no surprises, this season gets a very high average of 8.85 out of 10. And now we move on to one of my favorite seasons, Hunted. So Hunted starts with the episode Firstborn, which does a great job at setting up both sides of the story, 8.5 out of 10. Iron and Stone is solid as well. There isn't really anything notable to talk about, but very solid, 8.5 out of 10. Radio Free Ninjago is also very good. The best part obviously being when the Resistance breaks into Borg Tower, so Lloyd can deliver a powerful speech to the people of Ninjago. A third straight 8.5 out of 10. And continuing that streak is How to Build a Dragon, which is the episode where Cole builds his own dragon to confuse the dragon hunter so the ninja can escape. Obviously, as I said before, 8.5. And now we have the Gilded Path, which starts with the Sons of Garmadon invading the Resistance space, with only Lloyd, Nia, Dareth, and Skylar escaping. And on the other side, the ninja have escaped the dragon hunters. Wu has also into a team, and they team up with Faith, one of the dragon hunters. However, it is a slow episode, so it only gets an 8 out of 10. Next up is 2 Lies, 1 Truth. And it is decent, with majority of the episode being a chase between the ninja and the dragon hunters, so 9 out of 10. And next is Lessons for a Master, which follows Wu guiding the Iron Baron to the Firstborn's nest, where he eventually gets burnt alive, and the ninja go home, ready to help the other ninja fight Garmadon, 8.5 out of 10. And now onto the technically highest rated Ninjago episode ever, Green Destiny. So obviously, in this episode, Lloyd and Wu take on Garmadon in the finale, in a very emotionally tense fight, or not fight, because Garmadon gets defeated by Lloyd not fighting him. And I agree that this episode is peak, and it definitely deserves a 9.5 out of 10, meaning that Hunted gets an average of 8.8. And now on to March of the Oni, which is the shortest season that only received 4 episodes in 2019. The first episode being The Darkness Comes, and it certainly does, as it sets up the Oni as they take over the entirety of Ninjago City. The second half is good, however it did take a while to take off, so 8 out of 10. Into the Breach showcases Lloyd and Garmadon going into the darkness in order to obtain the Realm Crystal, another 8 out of 10. Next is The Fall, and this is obviously the episode where Cole falls off from the Destiny's Bounty, which is a very emotional and sad moment, which really takes its time, which I appreciate, 8.5 out of 10. Finally, we have the finale, rightly called Endings, where the ninja take on the Oni in a final stand at the monastery, where Cole comes back along with all of the ninjas' golden weapons. Lloyd also gets lost in heaven for a little bit there as well. It is a very good ending to this season and Masters of Spinjitzu as a whole, so 9 out of 10, which means this season gets an average of 8.4. So after Masters of Spinjitzu, the next show we got is simply called Ninjago, and the first season of this era is Secrets of Forbidden Spinjitzu, which had 30 11-minute episodes, split into 2 parts, for Fire and Ice. The first episode, Wasted True Potential, showcases the ninja being a bit lazy and out of shape, and it was really hard to watch at times, but I still enjoyed parts of it, so 7.5 out of 10. And next is Questing for Quests, and this is a filler episode where the ninja just run around the city trying to find something to do. Very stupid, 7 out of 10. Next up is the episode A Rocky Start, where the ninja go on a road trip to the desert. A fairly fun episode, but not much happens, 7 out of 10. And next up is The Belly of the Beast, where we see Zane go into the belly of the beast, 7.5 out of 10. And next is one of my favourite episodes of the season, Booby Traps and How to Survive Them. And I like this one because it's fun watching the ninja go through all of those booby traps, 8 out of 10. Next is The News Never Sleeps, which is a filler episode where we watch Nelson and Antonio ride through the city evading the lava snakes, 6.5 out of 10. Then we have Ninja vs. Lava, where the ninja attempt to escape the pyramid they were trapped in, and Kai hits his head a few times, 7.5. And next up we have Snake Catastrophe, and I hate this episode. It is literally just an episode filled up with fake advertisements, with a few cool snippets of Gale, Gossip and Vinny following Aspheria. Easily the worst episode in the show, 4 out of 10. Next is Powerless, where we see the ninja fight Asphyria in the museum, and it was a very good looking fight, so we'll bump this episode up to a 7.5 out of 10. Next is Ancient History, where nothing happens. The ninja pretty much just go to the Serpentine's tomb, then dip. 6.5 out of 10. Then we have Never Trust a Human, where we learn about the backstory of Wu and Asphyria and why she hates him so much. It is a pretty fun episode, so 7.5 out of 10. Next is Under Siege, and here the ninja pretty much just protects the monastery from Asphyria, so I'll give it to 6.5. Then we have the Explorers Club. It is yet another filler episode where Lloyd, Nia and Zane try to get into the club, but I did enjoy it a little bit, so 7 out of 10. And now we have Vengeance is Mine, where the ninja fight Asphyria and Zane ends up getting trapped into the Nether Realm, 8.5 out of 10. And finally, we have a cold goodbye, where the ninjas steal the Traveler's Tea off of Wu so they can go rescue Zane from the Nether Realm, 7.5 out of 10. And now onto the Ice chapter. It kicks off in with the Nether Realm, and this episode pretty much just serves as an introduction to this new realm, and it's alright, 7.5 out of 10. The next episode is Firemaker, where we see the ninja defend the village's fire from the Ice Army, and they end up failing, but Kai manages to regain his powers and bring the fire back, 7.5 out of 10. Next is An Unlikely Ally, where Lloyd meets a random wolf on his journey, 7 out of 10. And next we have The Absolute Worst, and it is close to being the absolute worst, because this is just a stupid filler anime episode, which contributes nothing to the show, 5 out of 10. And in the message, Lloyd and the wolf find the Titan mech, and a message from Zane after fighting a giant ice bird, 7 out of 10. And next is the Traveler's Tree, which is a fun episode where Cole climbs up a mountain in order to find Traveler's Tea because he feels bad about dropping their original supply. It's a fun episode, so 7.5 out of 10. And in Crag's Lament, the ninja befriend Crag and find the Traveler's Tree, 7 out of 10. And next up is The Secret of the Wolf, where we find out the secret of the wolf being that the wolf is actually a woman named Akita. So Lloyd and Akita just fight for the rest of the episode, 6.5 out of 10. And last of the Formlings is another anime episode, but it is better than the last one as you learn more about Akita, so 6 out of 10. And in My Enemy, My Friend, Lloyd gets attracted by a dragon and also gets imprisoned by the Ice Army, 7 out of 10. And in the Kaiju Protocol, we get another filler episode which shows Pixel fighting the Preeminent, very weird and out of place and unneeded, but slightly cool, so 6 out of 10. And in Corruption, we learn how Zane ended up becoming the Ice Emperor, which is a decent episode, so I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. A Fragile Hope follows the ninja making their way to the Ice Castle, and we also see Lloyd in the prison, and it's alright, so 7 out of 10. And in Once and For All, the ninja get attacked by the Ice Dragon, and Lloyd makes his way to the Ice Emperor after making his escape. So things are finally heating up, so 7.5 out of 10. Fine, and the finale, Awakenings, we get a very short fight between Lloyd and Zane, where Zane gets back to himself, and Kai becomes a Super Saiyan, 8 out of 10. So this season, very obviously, gets a very low average of 7.4 out of 10, yikes. So let's hope things get a bit better with 2020's first season, Prime Empire, which starts with the episode, Would You Like to Enter Prime Empire? So this is a good one, where we see the ninja fight the mechanic and also first hear about the game Prime Empire, which Jay gets trapped in at the end, 8 out of 10. And next is Dire Island, where the ninjas visit Dire Island and get greeted with some booty traps. It's a fun but unnecessary episode, 7 out of 10. Next is Level 13, where we see the ninjas try to make it to Level 13 in the game so they can then get into the game. It's a decent one, especially with the mini fight, so 7 out of 10. Next is Superstar Rocking J, which gives us a great introduction into the world of Prime Empire and all of the new mechanics the ninja need to learn, 7.5 out of 10. I Am Akino is a filler episode that teaches us about Akino's backstory. It's not the worst, but easily skippable, 6.5 out of 10. Next is The Glitch, where the ninja travel with Okino to get one of the katanas, and I quite like this episode, so 7.5 out of 10. And next is The Cliffs of Hysteria, and my favourite part of this episode is the rope of questionable integrity thing, and Cole attempting to recreate his fall from Master of the Oni, 7.5 out of 10. The Maze of the Red Dragon follows the ninja sneaking past the dragon to get the katana, and Okino also gets paid a visit by Unagami, 7.5 out of 10. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, literally takes a step back as it gets a 7 out of 10 as not much happens. And then in episode 10, Racer 7, Lloyd pretty much just tries to convince Racer 7 to team up with the ninja as they prepare for the race, 6.5 out of 10. Fortunately, the season picks up with this episode, The Speedway 5 Billion, where we watch this crazy race unfold, with Kai and Cole also getting turned into energy cubes in the process, 7.5 out of 10. Stop, drop, and side scroll. It's a fun episode where we get to watch the ninja play a side scrolling game, and there was just so much that I love about this episode as a video game enjoyer, 8 out of 10. And Ninjago Confidential is up next, and this is a fan favorite episode which takes a very different tone from the rest of the season, 8 out of 10 as well. The prodigal father continues with the Zane story, however it does feel like it takes too much away from what is happening in the far more interesting story in the game, so 7 out of 10. Then we have the Temple of Madness, where Nia gets turned into an energy cube, and Jay makes his stand against Unagami, 7.5 out of 10. And finally, we make it to the end with Game Over, and this is an interesting one as Unagami gets defeated in a very cool and unique way. However, this does mean the episode lacks a bit of action, but it still receives a solid 7 out of 10. So overall, this season gets an average episode rating of 7.8. And now on to another fan favorite season that also came out in 2020, Master of the Mountain. The first episode is called Shintaro, and it basically just showed the ninja get the invitation to go to Shintaro, and some of their journey to the kingdom. Not a very interesting episode, 6.5 out of 10. Then we have Into the Dark, where the ninja meet Vanya, and Cole and her go into the mountain for the very first time, 7 out of 10. The worst rescue ever shows the other ninja go into the dungeons to try and save Cole, but they fail and also get caught, 7.5 out of 10. The Two Blades gives us some lore on how the Gekko months ended up where they were, and it was an alright episode overall, 7.5 out of 10. Then in the Queen of the Months, we see Nia and the Months Queen fight each other for Jay. Not a very conventional episode concept, but I'm here for it, 7.5 out of 10. And Trial by Mino shows Kai and Zane with the Geckos, and it was quite boring. They pretty much just threw rocks at each other, 7 out of 10. And the Skull Sorcerer is where we find out that Vangelis is the Skull Sorcerer after Cole manages to escape the mountain, 7.5 out of 10. And then in the real fall, we watch Cole, Wu, and Vanya fall all the way to the bottom of the mountains, and for a very simple episode, I really enjoyed it, 8 out of 10. But unfortunately, we go back to the mid ratings with Dungeon Party, as it was another anime episode, probably the best one so far, but still not great, 6 out of 10. And in Dungeon Crawl, we have Cole and the Lowly go through the cave. Decent episode, so another 8 out of 10. Then in Griefbringer, pretty much all that happens is that all of the ninja bar Cole find each other again. It's pretty mid, 7 out of 10. Masters Never Quit introduces us to Spinjitzu Burst, but other than that, another very nothing episode, so 7 out of 10. The Darkest Hour is actually quite a bright spot for the season, as it had a lot of action with the ninja fighting the Skull Sorcerer, 8.5 out of 10. The Ascent shows Cole and the Loyally use the Earth Mech to ascend to the top of the mountain and get back up to defeat the Skull Sorcerer, 8 out of 10. The Uply Strike Back is a strong setup to the finale episode, 8 out of 10. And finally, we have the Son of Lily, and this is the best episode here by far. Cole unlocks his Spinjitzu Burst, defeats Skull Sorcerer, just like his mom did decades ago. Beautiful and emotional episode, easy 9 out of 10. So this season had a very slow start, but picked up a lot towards the end, meaning that season gets an average of 7.9 out of 10. That's definitely going to upset a few people though. And now onto a smaller Ninjago installment, The Island, which came out in 2021, which started with an action-packed episode, Uncharted. So this episode has a lot going on. They learn that Masako is missing, then they go to Twitchy Tim's cabin and convince him to go to the island with them. Then they go through the treacherous ocean to finally end up on the island. Pretty good episode. I'll give it an 8. Then we have the Keepers of the Amulet, which shows the ninja exploring the island and meeting the Keepers. I'll give it another 8 out of 10. The Gift of Jay slows the pace of the season down a lot, as the ninja are pretty much just in prison for the whole episode, and Jay is also treated like a king, only to be sent out to sea by the Keepers. 7.5 out of 10. And then we have the finale episode, The Tooth of Rojira, when the ninja save Jay and fight Rajira, who just turns out to be a boat made by Ronin. Overall, a very disappointing finale, which is why I'm only giving it a 7. So this 45-minute special started strong and ended poorly, giving it a grand total average of 7.6 out of 10. And we swim on to Seabound, the 14th season of the show. The season starts with a big splash, but in actuality, this season does not start off that strongly, as it pretty much just shows Nia moping around because her powers went a bit out of control. 7.5 out of 10. The Call of the Deep shows Nia and Maya spending some bonding time together, but just like a lot of 11-minute episodes, it is a whole lot of nothing. 6.5 out of 10. Then in Unsinkable, Wasted and Ninja go into the sea and then proceed to sink the ship somehow. 7.5 out of 10. 5,000 Fathoms Down shows Nia and Maya going into the ocean in their mechs, where they then get taken prisoner by Kalmar and his crew. Another 7.5. The Wrath of Kalmar gives us some good backstory with Kalmar and his father, and also ends off with a very cool scene for Jay. 8 out of 10 just for that. Long Live the King is quite an ironic name because the king doesn't end up living past this episode, as Kalmar ends up killing him. This is a very important episode for the season, so I'll give it another 8. The Escape from Melopia shows Benthama helping the ninja escape the kingdom of Melopia, and honestly, this is a great episode. 8.5 out of 10. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as we have the episode The Tale of Benthama, which pretty much just takes us through Benthama's backstory. At least it isn't in anime form though. 7 out of 10. The Storm Amulet is a fun episode when the ninja go back to the island to prevent the Melopian from getting the Storm Amulet. We also get this iconic image. 8 out of 10. Unfortunately, in the Riddle of the Sphinx, we go back up to the surface as we follow Kai, Cole, Wu and Ray as they fight Kalmar in the Explorers Club. Not too bad of an episode, so 7.5 out of 10. But what is a bad episode is Paper Girl, which is very similar to that one episode in season 11 that follows Nelson and Antonia, except this time they are cycling around sea creatures instead of lava snakes. 6 out of 10. Master of the Sea gives us the backstory of Niad, and the ninja also thinks they have defeated Kalmar in this episode as well. They haven't. 7.5 out of 10. However, in the calm before the storm, we find out that Kalmar was not defeated and he actually brought Rojira back. But we don't find that out until the very end, and nothing else really happens in this episode. 6.5 out of 10. Assault on Ninjago picks things up with Ninjago City flooding with water and the ninja trying to save everyone. 8 out of 10. And not much happens in the second to last episode apart from Nia saying her goodbyes to Jay as she becomes one with the ocean to save him. And yeah, this is a very good episode. 8.5 out of 10. And now we have the Turn of the Tide, which gives us a very cool fight between Nia and Rajira, and also Jay and Kalmar. We see a sad goodbye between Jay and Nia, and the funeral almost made me cry. 9 out of 10. Overall, Seabound was a very up and down season, but thankfully it had more ups than it did downs, so it ends up with an average of 7.6 out of 10. I can't lie, I thought it would be higher. And now we move on to the longest season so far, 2022's controversial Crystallize. The episode Farewell to Sea gives episode 1 of Tournament of the Elements vibes, except Cole is now going around to find the other ninja, and is also a whole lot worse as well. 7 out of 10. The Call of Home is another poor episode, and it just follows Nia swimming around the ocean trying to remember who she is. Definitely one I skip when I rewatch this season. 6.5 out of 10. The Shape of Nia has the ninja explore some Venshone stuff. Kai and Jay also fight and Nia reappears to the ninja. It's a solid episode. 8 out of 10. A Mere Problem showcases a ninja breaking out Asphira's staff and Asphira herself so she can drain Nia's elemental powers to save her. I really liked this episode. 8.5 out of 10. Public Enemies 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 show a ninja breaking into a vehicle to get Asphira's staff, as Cole and Jay failed to get it last episode. 8 out of 10. A Painful Promise brings Nia back but also sends the ninja to jail. 8 out of 10. Ninjago City vs Ninja gets off to a slow start with the ninja settling into prison, but it ramps up when Lloyd runs into someone who talks about the Crystal King, and then he chases them throughout the prison, 8 out of 10. Cryptarium Prison Blues is another good episode, where the ninja get into a few prison fights, and they also chase Pythor out of prison as the Crystal King helps him escape, another 8 out of 10. Hound Dog McBrog is the episode where we meet Hound Dog McBrog, because he gets tasked with hunting down the ninja after Nia helps him escape, 7.5 out of 10. The Benefit of Grief has grown on me quite a bit. I initially didn't like it, but now it is one of my favourites of the whole season, 8.5 out of 10. The fifth villain shows the ninja intercepting a message from the Crystal King off of the mechanic, and overall it's a very good episode, another 8.5 out of 10. And to end part 1, we have the Council of the Crystal King, and all you really need to know is that they made an Among Us joke, 9 out of 10. And swiftly moving on to part 2, we have a Sinister Shadow. So here we learn about how Harumi came back to life after getting crushed by a building, and what she has been doing since. Good episode, 8 out of 10. The spider's design spoils us with a very good Lloyd and Harumi dynamic, and also some OG ninja goodness, 8 out of 10. The Fall of the Monastery is a packed episode with the 4 ninja getting trapped inside a train, while Nia, Wu, Pixel and Skylar are in the monastery while it catches fire, 8 out of 10. Darkness Within, however, slows things right down. Lloyd is stuck for the whole episode, and the ninja pretty much just talk to each other, 7 out of 10. The Coming of the King is a whole episode that shows us Lloyd's epic escape from the Crystal Council. I absolutely love this episode, 8.5 out of 10. Next we have Return to Prime Evil's Eye. I know a lot of people hate this episode, but I don't mind it, 7.5 out of 10. Then in Catastrophe, the Vengestone army starts attacking Ninjago, and then the ninja fail to stop them, 7 out of 10 though. Christopher introduces Garmadon for the first time in 5 seasons, and we learn where he has been this whole time. It's a silly episode, but I enjoy it, 7.5 out of 10. A lesson about anger is all about Garmadon trying to teach Lloyd how to unlock his Oni side. It does get old after a while, so it only gets a 7 out of 10. Brave but Foolish finally picks the season up again, with Wu fighting the Crystal King and the bouncing crashing as well, 8.5 out of 10. Quitting Time shows Jay rescuing Nia after the crash and Wu getting saved by Nelson and Antonia, 7.5 out of 10. I was expecting more from Return of the Ice Emperor, but what we got was still decent, 7.5 out of 10. Safe Haven follows Kai, Cole and Skylar hiding from the Crystal Council on their way to the paper warehouse. Quite a boring episode, 7 out of 10. Compatible, however, almost made me cry because Pixel said a very emotional goodbye to Zane, 8 out of 10. Distress Calls shows the ninja splitting up and sending 3 distress calls to the allies. Not a very interesting episode by any means, 7 out of 10. An Issue of Trust shows the ninja try to unlock Dragon Form while also making their final stand against the Crystal Army, 7.5 out of 10. Dragon Form continues right where the last episode ended off, and not much really happens until the end, where the ninja of course unlock their Dragon Form, 7.5 out of 10. And finally, we have Roots, where a lot happens, but not too much good. It is very rushed, and that final scene still haunts me to this day, also 7.5 out of 10. So part 1 started off slow, but ended strong, and then part 2 continued strongly, but then faltered towards the end, with a few good episodes here and there. And that means that the average, surprisingly, is pretty high, as it is gonna be 7.6 out of 10. And we finally make it into Dragons Rising, in which the first season released in 2023, with the first episode being titled The Merge Part 1. So this was obviously a very important episode. It started right in the middle of the merge and showed us how the world has changed. We also got introduced to the 2 new main characters, Aaron and Zora, and they were really good in this episode. And Dragons Rising gets off to a very strong start, with its first episode getting an 8.5 out of 10. And then in the second part, we see Lloyd for the first proper time, and we also see Ryu for the first time as well, with the ninja. Another good episode, 7.5 out of 10. The Crossroads Carnival is also another good episode. We see Aaron's object spinjitzu for the first time, however, this was a bit of a filler episode, so I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 as well. And then next up we have Beyond Madness, where we see Kai and Nia for the first time, and Kai especially has been improved drastically from past seasons, 8 out of 10. And then we have the Riders of Destiny, where the ninja fight a Mergequake at the Cloud Kingdom, and we also get introduced to Euphrasia. I really enjoyed this episode, 8.5 out of 10. Return to Imperium gives us a short Sora backstory, and also introduces us to Imperium for the first time, another 8.5. Mindless Space continues the last episode, however not too much really happened. We did get to see Wildfire though, 7.5 out of 10. Our Bit of Danger starts with a Wildfire backstory, and also starts off with the huge fight we see between the ninja and Imperiums, 7.5 out of 10. And the Carmen side starts with a very odd Lloyd flashback, which almost certainly never happened. But after that, Kai and Nia find Zane, and Aaron and Sora team up together to fight Jordana and Lord Ross, 8 out of 10. And the mid-season finale battle is the Battle of the Second Monastery. Lloyd becomes a Source Dragon conduit and gains superpowers that allow the ninja to escape Imperium, along with the dragons as well, 8 out of 10. And now for our second part, we're at the Temple of the Dragon Cores, where the ninjas start their journey to get the Dragon Cores to stop the Mergequakes. A bit of a boring episode to be fair, 7.5 out of 10. Gangs of the Sea is not any better, as all we see is Lloyd and Aaron fight a giant crab, another 7.5 out of 10. Wildly inappropriate was an alright episode, however this episode really started to make me hate Wildfire, so it's only going to get a 7 out of 10. The last Jin was a cool episode, where we saw a Jin for the first time in 7 years, and it gave us a night fight sequence as well, 8 out of 10. They Call It Doom is a very odd episode, where Lloyd and Aaron go to the Snow Lounge, and this episode also continues my hatred for Wildfire, 7.5 out of 10. The Land of Lost Things is a very cool episode, where you see Cole, Jera, and all of the Finders, and I absolutely love this episode, 8.5 out of 10. And the next episode we have is the Administration, and I just love the overall vibe of the episode. We also get some decent Zane screen time, and also our first glimpse of Jay in Dragon's Rising, 9 out of 10. Absolute Power starts the finale of the season. Not too much really happens, but it's decent, 7.5 out of 10. We Are All Dragons gives us a very nice Sora speech, and also some solid action, 8 out of 10. And finally, The Power Within gives us Sora's true potential, and a very cool scene with Lloyd and the Dragon Cores, and also ends on a cliffhanger with Roz and Jordana. However, the defeat of Beatrix was underwhelming, so I'll knock it down to an 8.5 out of 10. Which means the first season of Dragon's Rising gets a solid 7.9 out of 10 average. Now let's move on to Season 2, which came out last year in 2024, and it started off very strongly with the Blood Moon. The first scene was very strong with Raz and Jordana discovering the Shadow Dojo, but it then quickly slowed down with all the social media stuff. But at the end, finished the episode strong with the fight between Aaron, Lloyd, Sora, and Cinder, 8 out of 10, but only just. Then Shattered Dreams gives us a very cool Cloud Kingdom fight, where we get introduced to Shadow Spin. The only downside of the episode is that it takes a while to get going, so only 8.5 out of 10. Then we have Beyond the Phantasm Cave, which was just such a fun adventure style episode, easy 9 out of 10. Force from the East takes us back to the Land of Lost Things, where the Wolfmaster attempts to steal Bonzel. But other than that, it feels kind of empty, so 7.5 out of 10. And in the next episode, The Spell at the Waterfall, we learn more about Bonzel, and the ninja also start their training under Eagle. However, it didn't really feel like the episode progressed to Season 2 much, so it's also 7.5 out of 10. 2 Mysterium largely shares the same problems from last episode, except the Rama is also here, so that knocks it down to a 7. Fugitives from Madness gives Cole and Zane some spotlight as they fight the Administration, while Kai also learns how to do Dragon's Rising in a very cool scene, I may add, 8 out of 10. Secrets of the Wilderness continues the Zane and Cole fight. The bounty also crashes, leading the ninja to split up. Solid episode, another 8 out of 10. The Forest of Spirits has a lot going on, but also not much going on at all. Except Roz absolutely slapping Aaron around, I'll give it another 8 out of 10. And finally, Rising Dragon is a decent mid-season finale, but Kai carries this episode hard with his fight with Cinder, and also himself getting trapped in Neverspace, 8.5 out of 10. And into part 2 we go with The Shape of Motion. And this is a decent setup to the second part, with one of the Arc Dragons dying, leading to the Source Dragon of Motion asking Ninja to join a tournament of the Sources to investigate what happened to it. 7.5 out of 10. Enter the City of Temples involves the Ninja prepping to enter the tournament and then pretty much breaking into the city. Overall, not a bad episode either, another 7.5 out of 10. The gather for the feast showcases so many new elemental masters to us, and that chase sequence at the end is quite cool. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Inside Domains is obviously known for one thing, and that is the Nia and Jay fight, and as disappointing as it still wasn't that bad, and the rest of the episode is pretty good as well, 8.5 out of 10. United We Fall is a big episode as it shows us lots of fights from the tournament. The Ninja also get forced to race to stay in the tournament due to attacking Cinder, and Graz also has his encounter with Aaron. So overall, I'll just give this episode an 8 out of 10. Truths and Lies is pretty much the last episode but in reverse. It starts with Graz and Aaron, then moves on to the Grace of the Ninja, and then ends with some more tournament fights, and the biggest between Nia and Noct, also 8 out of 10. The Sword Shadow shows Aaron using his detective skills to work, and it also starts with the Beatrix vs Lloyd fight, which is easily the best entire tournament. So much at stake, and the ending was quite unexpected, 8.5 out of 10. Then we have Clues and Suspects, where Aaron and Wildfire do more detective work. Sora and Thrak face off in the tournament, and then Cole goes with Aaron to meet Spirit Wu. Another decent episode, 7.5 out of 10. The final game is all about the final game. The entire episode basically just shows the fight between Sora and Noct, and this was a pretty good fight. Sora definitely held her own, and I like how they used all of the different elemental powers, 8 out of 10. And finally, we have Elements of Betrayal, where a lot happened. A lot of good happened, and most importantly, a lot of important stuff happened, with of course the biggest being Aaron running off with Roz in their Forbidden 5 at the end. I really enjoyed this episode. It's an easy 9.5 out of 10, almost perfect. So in total, this season receives an average of 7.7 out of 10. And finally, we make it onto the newest Ninjago season, Dragons Rising Season 3, starting off with the missing. So this episode was a fairly decent start, the main highlights being the fight versus the puppet and the introduction of the Forbidden 5, 7.5 out of 10. Next we have the ultimate object of admiration, where we see the ninja visit the first realm and fight an ogre, another 7.5 out of 10. The Spectral Lands gives us Moro, and that's all I've got to say, 8 out of 10. The Great Zan Robbery is next, and I really just like this episode. Adds nothing to the story at all, but we do see Pixel again, still 7 out of 10 though. I Alone Can Save Them gives us a big fight between the ninja and Zargt, and Aaron also finds out that his parents are dead, 8 out of 10. And most of Fallen Wishes is pretty much just Nia and Sora fighting Roxy and Ninjago, and it's alright, I'll give it a 7.5. Then a whole lot of nothing happens in the Draconic Master's Request, however, it's still a decent episode, so another 7.5 out of 10. Crashing Together brings the ninja back with Aaron for the very first time since he ran away, and we also get to see a lot of really nice Aaron and Sora flashbacks, however, there are a few too many of them, so I'll knock it down to a 7.5. Then we have Chaos Unchanged, where we have the ninja attempting to stop the Forbidden 5 from releasing Thunderfang, and of course, they failed like they always do, 8 out of 10. Then the finish of part 1, we have the Shadow Dragon, and this is a really good episode. The fight is really good, Aaron is amazing in this episode, and we get our first good look at Jay this season, 9 out of 10. And swiftly moving on to part 2, we have the Hollow Ones. So this episode basically sets up the two main stories of the season, Lord Roz's mission to obtain the dragon icons, and the ninja's mission to find Aaron's parents. And it does this really well as it gets a 7.5 out of 10. Human Resources gives us Jay helping the ninja infiltrate the administration, and just like the last administration episode, I really enjoyed this one, 8.5 out of 10. Between you and Lee spends the entire episode exploring the realm of Lee, and this is just a really good episode, 8 out of 10. Casket of Bones continues the realm of Lee's story, while also giving us with that Aaron, Raz and Sora fight, which is really cool, 8.5 out of 10. The Screaming Earth shows Aaron and Sora going to the land of Lee and finding out that his parents are alive. Other than that, fairly empty episode, 8 out of 10. Under the Light of a Mechanical Moon gives us a spectral fight in the realm of Lee, Aaron reconnecting with his parents, and the real star of Kai and Cole's journey, 8.5 out of 10. The vault of focus is strong throughout the whole episode. We have the main group go to the City of Temples to get information out of Blect, while Kai, Cole and Thrak go to Imperium to save the Finders, but Cole also unfortunately gets hollowed himself, 8.5 out of 10. For Whom the Bell Tolls starts each group's of ninjas' journey to reunite the two halves of the Archdragon, 7.5 out of 10. When the Doves Cry is a very good episode until Raptor shows up, and that just ruins the entire episode for me, so it's another 7.5 out of 10. Finally, Chaos Reigns is almost everything you would want in the finale. We have stakes, we have action, and it ends on a cliffhanger. The only thing missing is the big fight between the Archdragon and Thunderfang, as that was majorly disappointing. However, the rest of this episode is just really good, so it gets a 9 out of 10, which leaves Ninjago's newest season with an average of 7.5 out of 10, which means if we add each season's average together, the entire series gets an average of 8 out of 10. And before I say all of the comments, I am aware that I've ranked a lot of the earlier season episodes really highly, and I'm fully willing to say that it is 100% nostalgia bias. Well, I've just watched those episodes so much that I remember most of them so well, whereas I have only watched the newer ones a few times, so I don't remember them as much. So yeah, that was my list, and here is the list of all of the highest rated episodes. They all got a rating of 9.5 out of 10. And in the comments, don't give me a full episode ranking unless you want to spend the rest of your day doing that. Instead, maybe just list your favorite 5 or 10 episodes. And in the meantime, why not check out my Ninjago season ranking? It only goes up to Dragon's Rising Season 1. However, I still agree with most of my thoughts in that video. Anyway, see you later. Be Ninja.